In the heart of Lagos, where glass towers scrape the clouds and billionaires breathe rare air, a man laughed at a gift he could not understand. It was just a box, small, wooden, rough around the edges. But inside lay a key his father swore no one else would ever touch. He laughed, and the world laughed with him. Until that night, when the lights in his mansion flickered for the first time, and a voice long buried whispered through the wires, "Don't sell what you never understood." Cut to Logan staring at the key under moonlight, confusion on his face. What was the key for? Who sent the box? And why did surveillance show no one ever delivered it? This is the story of a man who had everything, except the one truth that could have changed it all. The box was small, too small to mean anything. Just 4 corners of worn-out wood tied together with twine, placed dead center on a marble desk that cost more than most homes in the city. No note, no name, no sound of a door opening, no ping from the elevator, no greeting at the front desk. Just a silent delivery in the most secure skyscraper in Victoria Island, and a camera system that would later confirm the impossible. No one entered the building. It was 7:46 a.m., and CEO Logan Chandler had just ended his daily 4 a.m. run and stepped into his penthouse office atop the Aurora Tower. The city of Lagos pulsed below, glass reflecting glass, wealth reflecting power. He picked up the box with the same detachment he gave to birthday cards or thank you notes from vendors. His staff gathered behind the glass wall, waiting for the morning stand-up. He didn't sit. He didn't hesitate. He opened it. Dust rose like memory. Inside, resting alone on a bed of crushed velvet, was a single brass key, aged, long-necked, with teeth carved by hand. The tag attached to it read in faded ink, "Property of Henry, Savannah." For a second, Logan said nothing. Then he laughed, a rich, hearty sound that bounced off the chrome fixtures and vibrated through the glass walls. "Somebody's feeling nostalgic," he chuckled, tossing the key in the air and catching it. His senior team filed in, smiling, curious. "What's the occasion?" asked Dean, head of mergers and acquisitions. Logan held up the key like a relic. "Apparently my father's come back from the grave with terrible branding ideas." Laughter followed. But Naomi, his executive assistant, the only one in the room who didn't laugh, stared at the key as if it had just whispered something. Logan noticed. "What? Too rustic for your taste?" Naomi's voice was soft. "Where did it come from?" "Desk," Logan replied. Magically appeared like guilt in a confession booth. Naomi stepped closer, peering at the tag. Her expression changed. Slowly, subtly, like someone remembering something they weren't supposed to remember. Her eyes didn't meet Logan's. "Your father, Henry, did he ever talk about Savannah?" Logan's jaw tightened. Just for a moment. Only when he was drinking. The meeting started. Slides about the Dutch robotics merger, numbers on projected freight costs, autonomous port operations. Logan was back in command, his voice sharp, his tone deliberate. The key was pushed aside, forgotten, a paperweight on a billion-dollar desk. But Naomi couldn't stop looking at it. That night, Logan returned to his penthouse. Lights flickered as the automatic doors slid open. He glanced out over the Lagos skyline, a city glowing with dreams. His home was silence wrapped in opulence. Then it happened again. The lights dimmed, not the buildings, just his floor, his systems, his home. He called down to building security. "Is there a blackout?" "No, sir," came the reply. "Entire grid stable. Yours is the only unit offline." An hour later, power returned. Logan went to his home office to wind down. His AI assistant, an experimental build called Iris, lit up on its own. A voice came through, familiar, raspy, his father's. "Don't sell what you never understood." Logan stood, frozen. "What the hell is this?" he called Naomi. She didn't answer. She was somewhere else, following a trail of her own. At that moment, Naomi was in the security office downstairs, replaying surveillance footage, frame by frame, time-stamped, clean, but something was off. The time of delivery, 7:46 a.m., showed no one entering the building, no one on the elevators, no courier logged. "How did it get on the desk?" she whispered. The head of security, an ex-Navy tech guy named Tope, shook his head. "You tell me. This building's got enough tech to spot a fly 2 floors up." Naomi left quickly, something burning in her gut. Her father, a quiet man who worked in Henry Chandler's mechanical yard 3 decades ago, had once spoken of a key, a very specific one that Henry said would only activate in the presence of someone he truly trusted. Naomi called her father. Voicemail. She drove straight to Logan's private garage, tucked away in a subterranean bay beneath the tower, the only place his late father insisted be built without smart tech. She stood there alone, staring at Logan's fleet, matte black Maybach, custom-built electric Range Rover, and the oddball in the corner, a dusty, neglected 1999 Grand Voyager that looked more like a memory than a machine. She inserted the key. It clicked. The floor beneath the back seat hissed and lifted, revealing a small steel compartment, locked shut, but now glowing green. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a key. It was a switch. The moment the compartment opened beneath the old Voyager's seat, a sharp mechanical scent filled the garage, cold metal mixed with time. Naomi reached in, fingers trembling, and retrieved a steel-encased module no larger than a cassette. It bore no brand, no markings, just a glowing green stripe and a fingerprint reader. Logan arrived minutes later, still skeptical. "So my dad left a toy in a dinosaur car. What are we expecting? A mixtape and a secret will?" Naomi didn't laugh. She pressed his thumb to the scanner. Click. The dashboard lit up. Dust shook from the interior vents. The screen flickered on with a logo neither had ever seen. 3 concentric circles spinning counter to each other, like orbit rings. A low tone played. "Welcome, Logan. If Victor sees this, run." The voice was Henry's. Logan staggered back. "What the hell is this?" The screen displayed a directory of files. Phase 1 blueprints, AI routing logic, voice memos, fail-safes, emergency protocols. Naomi clicked on Blueprints. A 3D model unfolded, showing a freight network spanning sub-Saharan Africa, borderless, self-learning, capable of routing transport based on live terrain, security threats, weather, and community need. It was called Project Orbital. The system didn't rely on cloud computing. It was designed with edge AI nodes, small, independent intelligence units that learned from local data and synced periodically. Decentralized, corruption-resistant, and built for Africa's unique infrastructure gaps. Naomi stared, wide-eyed. This isn't just logistics. It's a living economic nervous system." Logan remained silent, processing. "Victor. Why would Dad say that about Victor?" Naomi hesitated. "Did you ever ask what your father left behind before you took over Venture Trans?" Logan's voice was low. "I didn't have to. The lawyer said it was all assets and a few unfiled patents. Nothing substantial." Naomi shook her head. "This wasn't on any will." It was clear. Henry never trusted the system to lawyers. Logan disconnected the module, locking it in a titanium case. "We keep this between us, for now." The next morning, the Dutch robotics firm abruptly pulled out of the merger. Their email was vague. Conflicting vision priorities, leadership uncertainty, strategic misalignment, no warning, no negotiation. Hours later, a viral tweet surfaced. A photo of Logan, smug-faced, holding the box aloft during that now infamous morning meeting. The caption read, "Billionaire laughs at late father's legacy. Here's what was inside the box." The tweet exploded. Overnight, social media turned Logan into a symbol of entitled second-generation wealth. The key he mocked trended for days. Commentators asked, was Henry Chandler a forgotten genius? Was Logan burying a legacy? Naomi, meanwhile, dug deeper. Hidden in one of the voice memos was a fragment of a GPS coordinate, paired with a name she'd seen only once in a dusty company log, Mobile, Alabama. She pulled up the documents. Buried under Henry's name was a private warehouse, listed as a defunct mechanical testing center, never included in any known estate listing. She brought it to Logan. He refused at first. "This is a distraction. We need to focus on damage control, not scavenger hunts." But Naomi pressed him. "You don't understand. Orbital wasn't just an idea. It was built. That car wasn't storage. It was part of it." Days later, against his better judgment, Logan chartered his jet, and they flew to Mobile. The town was quiet, industrial bones rusting beneath southern sun. The warehouse stood alone on a gravel lot, vines creeping up steel walls. There were no guards, no motion sensors, no power lines, but the lock on the main gate had recently been changed. Logan muttered, "This is ridiculous. My father couldn't have kept something like this running." But Naomi had already found the keypad. She entered Henry's old mechanic badge number. The lock hissed, the gate opened. Inside, it was cool and silent. Then, a sound. Metal on metal. Somewhere in the dark, something moved. They stepped cautiously through the cavernous space, flashlights bouncing off half-assembled trucks, mechanical skeletons, discarded workbenches. At the far end, a raised platform. And then it spoke. A voice, processed, artificial, yet unmistakably Henry's. "Logan Chandler, identity verified." The overhead lights flickered. Then, with a surge of sound, a massive vehicle stirred beneath a black tarp, wheels twitching, sensors glowing dimly. It turned toward them slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. "Welcome, user. Project Orbital, awaiting next command." Logan stepped back. "What the?" Naomi stared in awe. "It's still alive." The system had survived without a server farm, without updates, without funds, for decades. Henry had built something the world said wasn't possible, and hidden it where only the right key could find it. And now, it was awake. The voice echoed through the warehouse, crisp and intimate, like it had never left the man who once owned it. "Welcome, son. Time is running out." Logan froze, his breath caught between disbelief and grief. It wasn't a synthetic voice mimicking Henry. It was him. His tone, his timing, his unmistakable weight of presence. Naomi approached the robotic truck that had just come to life. Part skeletal chassis, part rolling server core. Its frame bore the dents of real work, and its screen blinked steadily in green. Verifying lineage. Chandler, Logan, verified. Access granted. The truck's internal systems began to hum, hydraulics twitching as if it were stretching after a long sleep. Small vents opened, projectors fired up. A live holographic map of West Africa filled the air, floating inches above a rusted workbench. Naomi's voice broke the silence. "It's a real-time command center." She walked toward a control console nestled behind stacks of storage crates. Dust thick, but the screens still responsive. She wiped one clean, revealing a dashboard of analytics. Border delays, satellite traffic overlays, storm movement across the Gulf, and supply chain interruptions. "Look at this," she whispered. "It's still learning." Every detail was there. Optimized freight corridors avoiding civil unrest zones, elevation-based routing to reduce fuel loss, seasonal harvest predictions aligned with delivery schedules. This wasn't a model. It was a functioning system. Logan stared at the projection, not just at the data, but at what it meant. Orbital had never needed approval. It had simply needed time. He pressed his hand against the side of the truck, reading the paintwork underneath. Built for the people who never got Plan A. The words weren't part of the code. They were part of the man. Naomi tapped through deeper system logs, uncovering archived voice memos, conversations, debates, audio diaries. One file played itself automatically as the AI identified the movement of its authorized users. Henry, recording. Victor doesn't see it. He never will. He thinks I'm wasting capital on dirt roads and forgotten villages. But the future isn't a tower. It's a path. And if Logan ever finds this place, he needs to know. This was never about profit. It was about purpose. Logan's chest tightened. His father had planned everything, down to the voice that would greet him. Another file, marked Debate Log, H versus V, began playing. Victor, you're burying billions in rural idealism. The world is scaling up, Henry, not scaling back. Henry, I'm not building for the world, Victor. I'm building for the man who delivers cassava in Owerri, the mother waiting for baby formula in Juba. If we only build for markets, we forget humanity. Victor, then you'll die broke, and no one will remember you. Henry, if I do this right, I won't need to be remembered. The system will speak louder than my name. Logan felt his throat tighten. The argument sounded too familiar. He'd had similar ones with his father, only colder, more personal, framed in silence and resentment. The truth began unspooling like threads in his mind. VentureTrans, his empire, was never entirely his. He had absorbed tech startups over the years, targeting scalable logistics microservices, efficient, quiet. Underutilized assets, Victor used to call them. Now, watching Orbital breathe on its own, Logan saw the truth. Many of those startups bore Henry's fingerprints. One had focused on terrain mapping via mobile devices, another on drone-assisted delivery prediction. A third, based in Senegal, specialized in localized driver scoring. It had folded just before Logan bought its tech. They weren't coincidences. They were breadcrumbs. Henry had been building Orbital in pieces, across people, across regions. When VentureTrans swept through the market acquiring ideas, it had unknowingly collected the limbs of its father's lost dream. Logan leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. All this time, I've been selling what I never understood. Naomi sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. And your father knew. That's why he left the key. Outside, the Alabama sky was beginning to shift to dusk. Golden light poured in through the warehouse's broken windows, casting long shadows against the metal skin of Henry's final machine. Naomi returned to the console, scrolling through the digital archive. Then she froze. On the side of the robotic truck's interface screen was a logo. Circular, minimalist, with 3 small nodes branching outward. Logan narrowed his eyes. I know that symbol, he said. He pulled up a file on his tablet, a recent acquisition, a company called ArcaQuant, specializing in cold chain AI modules. VentureTrans had acquired them just 3 months ago. He zoomed in on the company's original branding. Same logo, same origin. He stared at the screen. What if, he whispered. What if I've been buying back my father's soul, one piece at a time? Naomi turned to him slowly, expression serious. Then it's time we figure out who knew that, and who's been watching. The penthouse office felt colder now, not because of the temperature, but because Logan Chandler could no longer trust what had made him rich. What had made him powerful? What had built his name into headlines and Forbes covers? He and Naomi sat in silence, surrounded by a wall of glass that overlooked the Lagos skyline. Her fingers danced across the holographic projection table, VentureTrans's internal archives. "Start with the acquisitions," Logan said. "Last 10 years. Filter by original patent source and founding team registry." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "No," he replied, "but I need to see it anyway." The data loaded like an unrolled carpet of decisions. Company after company, 56 acquisitions. Some were absorbed into VentureTrans's core engine. Others were quietly buried. Naomi overlaid Henry Chandler's known patents from his early career, the old mechanical ones, the ones he filed in rural labs, tiny tech parks, or through university partnerships. She ran the algorithm. A new image bloomed on the table. A web. Dense. Tangled. 46%, Naomi whispered. 46% of your acquisitions align with Henry's original designs. Some were direct duplicates, others borrowed just enough not to be noticed. Logan stepped back, breath caught in his throat. How did I not see this? Naomi scrolled down the list. Because most of the original ideas were buried, sold through shell companies, brands with no traceable origin, or patents that lapsed and were bought for pennies. She paused. Victor must have known. Logan swallowed hard. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Victor, the man who mentored him, guided him, shaped his empire, had been choreographing it all. He wasn't building Logan's legacy. He was completing Henry's in the shadows, on his own terms, claiming brilliance by rearranging a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Naomi dug deeper. She found a hidden folder buried under an inactive account, previously belonging to Victor's executive assistant, encrypted. But Naomi's clearance as chief of staff allowed her entry. The first email read, "We've played him well. The fool architect builds while the puppeteer collects." Another, "He's too busy chasing scale to notice he's building his father's bones." Logan sat down slowly. The chair creaked beneath the weight of a crumbling truth. All his life, he had run from his father's legacy, only to find he'd been crafted into its executor, a pawn with $1 billion budget. Silence filled the room. And then came memory, uninvited, heavy. Logan was 16 when he first turned his back on engineering. Henry had spent months helping him build a solar-powered cargo drone. It was slow, ugly, imperfect, but it worked. Henry had beamed with pride. Until Logan came home one day, declared he was dropping the project and switching to finance. "I don't want grease under my fingernails," he'd said. Henry hadn't said a word, just nodded and walked out of the room. That was the night their relationship began to splinter, one silence at a time. Logan rubbed his temples, the memory cutting deeper than expected. Naomi watched him. "Maybe he knew you wouldn't want the burden of finishing it. Maybe he hoped someone else would lead you back." He looked at her. "I'm not a builder, Naomi. I'm a broker. I buy things. I move money. I pitch ideas. I don't make them." Naomi leaned forward. "But you could, with the truth, with Orbital." He shook his head. "If we go public with this, I lose everything. The market doesn't care about legacy. They care about valuations, shareholders, profit per quarter." She stood slowly, walked to the window, and then placed a folded note on his desk. "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I wrote this in handwriting. No AI, no tracker, no timestamp." She left the room without another word. Logan opened it. Only one line was written. "If you were never meant to inherit the throne, maybe you were meant to rebuild the kingdom." He sat there for a long time. No music, no meetings, just the buzz of city life trying to climb into his silence. He reached for the encrypted orbital drive and connected it to his secure terminal. Files danced across the screen. The system's AI core throbbed to life again. Then, a ping. Incoming message. Untraceable server. Origin: Enugu, Nigeria. No subject line. Just a single line of text. Henry's system is live. Come now. Logan stared at it. The cursor blinked. The air shifted. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a son. The air in Enugu carried a different kind of weight. A mixture of warm dust, promise, and something unspoken. Logan stepped off the tarmac in a linen shirt, no security detail, no entourage. Just him, a duffel bag, and the encrypted message that had pulled him thousands of kilometers away from his tower of steel. He didn't go to a hotel. The message led him to a community marketplace, bustling with chatter, clinking metal tools, and the scent of roasted corn and motor oil. Beneath the stalls and tarps, between circuit boards and crates of mangoes, there was something else, something hidden. A boy no older than 19 intercepted him. No handshake, no formalities. Just a nod. "You're Logan Chandler?" Logan paused. "Yes. And you are?" The boy smiled faintly. "I'm Jude. Your father said you might come." They wove through the market, passing by tailors, welders, and teenage girls debugging code on cracked laptops. Logan's suit stuck out like glass in a mud field. They stopped at a vegetable stall. The vendor handed Jude a bag of onions, then pushed aside a false wooden panel in the floor. A steel trap door waited beneath. Jude opened it. "Your father built a world down here, one no one ever wanted to see." They descended into a cool, humming darkness. The space below was no ordinary basement. It was a micro-data farm, lined with refurbished processors, DIY cooling systems, and solar converters. Walls were covered in chalk math, scripts, and routing tables. Jude sat at a glowing terminal. "We call it Node 0, Orbital's lungs." Logan stepped forward, mouth dry. "You've been running this?" Jude nodded. 5 years, with about 19 others across the continent. Your father used the last of his money to fund us quietly. Every paycheck came under your name." Logan's chest tightened. "What?" He said if your name carried the system forward, then it wasn't wasted. A silence fell, the kind that breaks something open inside a man. Logan turned away, tears threatening to betray him. "He believed in me," he whispered, "even when I didn't believe in him." Naomi arrived later that afternoon, having flown in with nothing but a laptop and an old notebook from her university days. Her eyes lit up when she saw the interface. "This encryption protocol, I wrote this logic in my final year thesis. Your father must have seen my open source code online and integrated it." Logan stared at her. "You're part of this too?" She smiled, half in awe, half in disbelief. "We all are." They sat together in the heart of the underground lab, watching the live feed from Orbital's system. Not a simulation, not a model. Reality. Trucks rerouted around rainfall in Jos. A food convoy redirected from an unstable border zone in Buea. A medical supply van flagged to pick up extra cargo in McCurdy. No signatures, no fees, no permissions. Just intelligent empathy, built on localized AI logic and community-driven data. Jude leaned forward. "You see, it's not just tech. It's survival." Logan's gaze lingered on the display, then drifted to a photo tacked above the main console. His father, mid-laugh, greasy hands on a circuit board, a tool clenched between his teeth. "I spent years thinking he was stuck in the past," Logan murmured. "Turns out he just believed the future should belong to everyone." Outside, the sky darkened over Enugu, but underground, Orbital pulsed like a living organism, responding, learning, adapting. It had never stopped evolving. Naomi turned to Logan. "So, what do we do now?" He didn't answer immediately, but the conviction in his voice returned. "We go public. We show the world what this is. Not a product, not a patent, a path." Naomi nodded. "We'll need to be careful. Victor's been trying to patent fragments for years. If he sees this—" A ping interrupted her mid-sentence. Jude pulled up a news stream. Breaking. VentureTrans chairman Victor Raines announces global launch of V-Circuit, a next-generation autonomous logistics platform built on African transport intelligence. Logan's breath caught. Naomi narrowed her eyes. "That's Orbital." But stripped, rebranded, with surveillance hooks and commercial control built in. Victor had made his move, and he'd done it using Logan's acquisitions. Logan's face, Logan's network. Jude looked up, brows furrowed. "If that goes global, they'll crush the decentralized nodes. People will choose the easier version." Naomi's jaw tightened. "Unless they see the real one first." Logan stood, a new fire rising in his voice. "Then we don't wait. We launch before he does." The headlines broke like thunder. Victor Raines unveils V-Circuit, Africa's first end-to-end AI freight infrastructure. Innovation rooted in African soil, globalized by vision. From dust to data, how one billionaire is rewiring the continent. Victor stood on a sleek, violet-lit stage in Amsterdam, dressed in tailored charcoal linen, his voice dripping with gravitas. Behind him, a massive screen showcased simulations of autonomous trucks, smart grids, solar-powered routing drones, and predictive scheduling software. To the casual eye, it was revolutionary. To Logan Chandler, it was theft. Every screen, every feature, every data stream, all bore the DNA of Orbital. Only this version wore a new name, polished to corporate perfection. V-Circuit. But Logan saw the cracks immediately. Buried within the flowcharts were data siphons, surveillance subroutines that gathered driver movement, trade behavior, even voice patterns. It wasn't logistics, it was extraction. Victor wasn't building a network. Naomi said it best, her voice low but searing. He's building a net. Logan stood at a crossroads. He could go public, sue, release proof of the theft, drag Victor through the digital mud. Or he could walk away, let Orbital thrive quietly in the underground nodes, free of PR wars, untouched by headlines. But then he remembered Jude's words. It's not just tech, it's survival. And survival, in the shadows, always came second to power that controlled the light. So Logan chose neither war nor retreat. He chose rebirth. He called Naomi, Jude, and a select group of regional coders. "We're not launching a competitor," he said. "We're launching a movement." Orbital Public was born in a small, rented hall in Ibadan, announced with no champagne, no headlines, no scripted applause. Instead, they streamed it, a simple, honest broadcast. No suits, no buzzwords, just Logan, raw, exposed, speaking directly to the people. "I laughed at a box," he began, "because I thought I had everything, but I didn't have my father's heart, or his purpose." He told the story. The key, the rusted car, the underground lab, the whisper of a man who refused to let his vision be buried. He admitted his blindness, his arrogance, and then he held up the key. "This," he said, "wasn't a gift. It was a wake-up call." Meanwhile, Naomi spearheaded a docu-series, Code from Clay. She traveled from Kaduna to Kisumu, from Kumasi to Kibera, capturing faces of the real Orbital, young women rewriting routing logic in borrowed cybercafes, boys using broken phones to optimize delivery lines, elders relaying data through radio codes. The series spread like wildfire. Not polished, not corporate, human. Hackathons erupted in Nairobi, Accra, and Kigali. Street murals went up in Zaria and Sekondi. Local radio in Onitsha aired roundtable discussions on decentralized AI ethics. Logan had tapped into something far deeper than innovation: ownership. By week 3, Orbital Public had more contributors than V-Circuit had employees. Naomi walked into Logan's flat one evening with tears in her eyes. "There's a girl in Sokoto," she said, "who built an edge router from a broken tablet and recycled solar lights. She named it Henry." Logan nodded, quietly emotional. Then came the moment they hadn't anticipated. A major logistics summit in Berlin streamed Victor's V-Circuit demo live. Midway through, as Victor paraded stats, a terminal behind him began to glitch. Numbers scrambled. Maps rewrote themselves. Lines crossed erratically. The camera panned, unintentionally, to the screen's corner. A message pulsed in quiet green. Orbital detected source conflict, re-authenticating original protocol. Gasps in the room. Awkward laughter. And then the system crashed. Live, global. 37 investors walked out before Victor left the stage. Within the hour, Dr. Orbital Original trended across social platforms in Africa, the US, and Europe. A Kenyan influencer posted, "We don't need new names for old dreams. Give credit where it's due." Jude texted Logan from Enugu. The system recognized its father. Logan looked at the key on his desk, still dusty, still unchanged, and whispered, "And maybe its son, too." But just as the tide turned in their favor, something strange occurred. A message appeared in the Orbital Public Core dashboard. It wasn't from Victor. It wasn't from Naomi. It came from an old, dormant server, offline for years. The message simply read, "Node 7 compromised. Source, Lagos." Naomi stared at it, her face going pale. "That's not one of ours." Logan leaned in, frowning. "Then whose is it?" The calls began slowly at first. An executive from Zurich, a VC from London, a consortium from Cape Town. They wanted in. They wanted equity. They wanted a piece of the platform that was rewriting Africa's logistics future from beneath the radar. But Logan Chandler didn't take the calls. Not anymore. Instead, he drafted a manifesto. Quietly. Carefully. No fanfare. It was called the Legacy Fund, a community equity platform that allowed everyday Africans to own shares in Orbital Public. No suits, no pitch decks, just local farmers, market traders, students, and transport workers investing in something they used and now helped to build. "Legacy shouldn't come with exclusivity," Logan said at a live stream event. "It should come with access." He launched the first 3 data centers not in major capital cities, but in Ilorin, Port Harcourt, and Goma, places his father once mapped by hand. Each center was built with recycled hardware, cooled with passive airflow, and powered by solar mini-grids. Every one of them bore a plaque that read, "Built with what was left behind." Local tech apprentices flocked in. Mechanics became hardware maintainers. Young coders, many self-taught on cracked phones and borrowed Wi-Fi, were given stipends to optimize real-world systems. Logan met them all. He sat on wooden benches and iron stools, listening to wild ideas: delivery drones that rode on power lines, AI models that predicted market traffic based on music tempo, even routing logic based on palm wine sales. He laughed with them, funded them, gave them more than checks. He gave them dignity. Naomi, ever steady, turned her attention to the future. She launched Code Her, a training initiative focused solely on rural girls in underserved areas. It wasn't just about coding syntax. It was about building confidence, rewriting cultural scripts, and reminding them that intelligence had no gender, no postcode. They traveled together often, Logan and Naomi, long road trips to visit data hubs, small towns, and border communities. In those unguarded miles, something tender began to take root. Not fiery, not rushed, just deep, gradual, safe. Conversations flowed late into the night, under stars, in roadside motels, by dusty windows with no curtains. Logan confessed one evening in Katia while seated on a rooftop with a paper plate of suya between them. "I always feared love," he said. "Not because I didn't want it, but because I never saw it survive wealth." Naomi looked at him. "Your father did. You just didn't recognize it." I turned to her, puzzled. She smiled. "He loved you. Stubbornly, silently. He didn't show it in hugs or birthday cards. He showed it in the architecture of a world he built just so one day you could find your way back to him." That night, he didn't sleep. He just stared at the key, now worn smooth by his fingers, resting beside his bed like a compass. Weeks later, a visitor arrived unannounced at the Ibadan Eco office, a woman in her late 60s, regal in posture but worn by time. His mother. She hadn't spoken to him in 10 years. Logan stood frozen as she entered the room, clutching a sealed folder. No hugs, just silence. And then, "Your father told me, if I ever saw the world catch up to his dreams, I should bring you this." She handed it to him. Her hands shook. Inside was a handwritten note. Not legal, not notarized, just his father's voice on paper. "Don't give him gold, give him the map." There was no treasure, only a diagram, a route connecting all of Henry's data nodes, and a final location circled in red. Mobile. Naomi entered the room moments later, phone in hand, her face unreadable. "I just received something," she said. "It's encrypted, voice authenticated, embedded in a dead drive I thought was useless." She tapped the play button. Henry's voice came through, hoarse, a little older. "Naomi, you were always the key's keeper. If Logan has found you, then he's found the door. But there is one more. The final door. In mobile. You'll know it when it opens itself." Logan stared at her. She nodded. They both knew. The journey wasn't over. The train station in Mobile, Alabama, had long fallen off maps, its platforms overgrown, its signs faded into ghosts of steel. Graffiti covered most of the remaining walls, and broken vending machines stood like statues from another century. But Naomi's voice, guided by Henry's final encrypted message, led them there. Inside the station's crumbling concourse, they followed a sequence of coordinates, embedded in the architectural schematics Henry had left behind. There was no tech, only a sequence of steps, floor panels, and coded phrases etched into the wood with a craftsman's precision. Logan moved silently through the dust and decay, the key in his pocket pulsing gently against his leg, a weight of metal that no longer felt like burden, but compass. They reached a door at the end of what was once a switching control office, its rusted bolts untouched by time, sealed with an analog lock. Naomi typed in a numerical code Henry used in nearly every design he'd ever filed. 1984, the year Logan was born. Click. The door hissed open. Beneath the old rail station, buried in steel and silence, was a forgotten control center. Originally built for regional rail automation, later re-engineered by Henry into a live simulation lab for orbital. The room came to life the moment Logan stepped through. Fluorescent lights flickered on, row by row, illuminating vintage tech, experimental panels, and servers with blinking green indicators. The simulation board lit up, projecting an early version of Orbital, not as code, but as a human test bed. Naomi moved to a nearby desk, dusting off drives and data chips labeled by hand. She found it. A master directory. User feedback. Field logs. Beta drives. They opened the database and gasped. Inside were hundreds of real stories, testimonies, anonymous trip reports, manual entries from transport workers, market riders, and student couriers who had unknowingly piloted orbital prototypes through Henry's partnerships. The routing suggestions, transport paths, and node decisions were recorded, and beneath them, human annotations. It found a better way through the rainy hills, saved me fuel. Didn't know this road was open? Never would have made it to Abba without this. Whatever system this is, thank you. I got home before curfew. Logan clicked on a video file titled Live Input, Quara Pilot. The footage opened to show Henry seated on a foldable chair in a dusty garage, across from a shy boy in school uniform. Name? Henry asked. Fatai, I'm 14. What do you think this system is? Fatai paused, then smiled. It's not a map, sir. It's hope. Logan stepped back, a hand over his mouth. The simplicity, the vision, the truth that his father hadn't built a tool for trade. He had built a mirror for the continent's heartbeat. They watched more footage. Henry asking questions with the curiosity of a teacher and the humility of a student. Drivers laughing as they shared fuel hacks. Mothers showing how Orbital helped them get medicine on time. No tech jargon, no profit margins. Just humanity, captured in code. Logan turned to Naomi. We release it, he said. All of it? All of it. No paywall, no conditions, no branding. Naomi nodded. Her hands moved fast over the terminal, curating clips, editing metadata, formatting footage. Within hours, she created a short film. The Key My Father Left Me. It opened with Logan's voice, narrating over grainy footage of Henry. He never asked for applause. He never chased headlines. But he built something the world said wasn't necessary. A system that saw people before profit. The film spread like fire across digital platforms. Within 3 days, over 12 million views. University students hosted public screenings. Small transport unions wrote Orbital in chalk on their truck panels. Grandmothers in Kano said they prayed for that Henry. Naomi returned to Logan's side late one evening at the station. The last drive had finished uploading. Done, she said. It's all out there now. There's no taking it back. Logan sat on the edge of an old console, looking around the dim-lit lab his father once filled with possibility. He thought of Henry working late into the night, alone, tired, uncelebrated, yet hopeful. I think this is what he wanted, Logan whispered, to finish what couldn't be started in the daylight. Naomi leaned against the wall beside him, shoulder brushing his gently. You didn't inherit a company, Logan. You inherited a mission. Just then, Logan's phone buzzed, an unlisted number. He answered, voice steady. Logan Chandler. The voice was old, gravel thick, familiar but buried by time. He built one more system, the man said, but it was never digital. Logan stood slowly. Who is this? The voice replied simply. A friend of your father. He asked me to find you when the time was right, and that time is now. The address led them to the edge of Montgomery, Alabama, a weathered house beneath an arching jacaranda tree, with a porch that creaked under the weight of memory. Naomi stayed in the car, giving Logan space. The man who opened the door was tall, with silver hair braided tight against his scalp. His face was lined with decades of road and sun, but his eyes, steady, penetrating, carried the same intensity Henry once did. Ishmael? Logan asked. The man nodded slowly. You're Henry's boy. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. Inside, they drank Zobo from old metal cups. There were no laptops, no gadgets, just shelves of ledgers, maps drawn in pencil, and corkboards filled with photos of rural truck stops. I was your father's logistics advisor, Ishmael said, back when Orbital was just an idea he scribbled on cartons. Logan leaned forward. He said there was one more system, one that wasn't digital. Ishmael smiled sadly. because it couldn't be. He stood, walking toward a framed sketch. It was called the trust chain, built not with servers or satellites, but with people. Trained coordinators in each region, local validators who knew every corner, every transporter, microlenders who didn't need credit scores. They trusted based on history, face, and community. Logan stared. You're saying he tried to build an informal economy inside an informal economy? Not tried. Did. Ishmael tapped the map. 7 corridors, west to east, from Benin to Nairobi. We ran it quietly for 5 years. No permits, no tracking, just handshakes and honor. Why didn't he launch it publicly? Because it wasn't scalable in the way investors like. It needed faith. And that doesn't sell well on slides. Logan sat back, reeling. He thought about the orbital nodes, the feedback logs, the boys coding in tin shacks. And now this, a system that ran on trust, not transactions. Naomi entered the room quietly, holding her tablet. You need to see this, she said. She pulled up a real-time overlay of current informal trade movements and overlaid Ishmael's corridor sketch. The match was staggering. Henry's system, though dormant, had already laid the behavioral infrastructure for much of Africa's informal cargo economy, without fanfare, without credit. Logan felt something shift inside him, again. He turned to Ishmael. Can we revive it? The old man nodded. It never died. It just waited. And so began the next chapter. Logan funded a pilot initiative through the Legacy Fund, calling it Trust Pods, small clusters of community-led trade routes, supported by light infrastructure and operated entirely on honor-based exchange. Naomi built a blockchain-light system, no tracking, no surveillance, just enough to verify exchanges anonymously, maintaining data integrity without compromising dignity. Each pod had 3 roles: the connector, who arranged movement, the anchor, who validated exchanges, and the bridge, who resolved disputes using memory, not metrics. They launched in Zaria, Mbale, and Koforidua. Within weeks, results flowed in. Delivery times improved by 34%. Theft incidents dropped to 0. Local traders, who once waited weeks for goods, now received them in hours, not because of AI, but because someone knew their name and believed they'd pay. Articles appeared in independent journals. A farmer in Sierra Leone. I've never used a bank, but I've never missed a payment either. A transporter in Burkina Faso. The system doesn't see me as a risk, it sees me as a man. Investors began calling again, only this time it wasn't admiration, it was nervousness. The trust pods weren't just working, they were working too well. No middlemen, no profit margins to exploit, no dependence on proprietary tech. It was too efficient to control. At a logistics summit in Casablanca, a US-based investor reportedly whispered, "If this scales, we're out of a continent." Meanwhile, Orbital Public's docuseries had reached its 7th episode, chronicling how the trust pods were being adopted not by governments, but by grandmothers, bike messengers, and retired teachers. The new African infrastructure wasn't concrete. It was people. Then came the call. Victor, after months of silence, he didn't sound angry or desperate, just familiar. "Logan," he said, "I think we're past the point of sabotage, don't you? What do you want?" "A reunion." Logan hesitated. "Why?" "Because I have something of your father's. Something I never gave anyone, not even your lawyers." Silence. "His original journal, handwritten, untouched, with everything that never made it to code." Logan's voice was steel. "What's the catch?" "Dinner. Just dinner." Naomi watched him hang up, concern etched on her face. "You're not actually considering it." Logan stood, the key in one hand, the trust chain map in the other. If he has the journal, then he has the last piece. The rooftop of the Ivory Crest Hotel in Nairobi shimmered with quiet power. Glass tables, white orchids, soft jazz. It was the kind of place where billion-dollar conversations hid behind candlelight and curated menus. Logan Chandler arrived alone. He wore no watch, no tie, just a quiet confidence earned in dust, code, and cargo routes. Victor Raines was already seated, wine in hand, smile polished like chrome. "Logan," he said, rising with theatrical grace, "the People's Prince, Africa's accidental architect." Logan didn't smile. "Let's skip the poetry." Victor chuckled. "Fair enough. You've changed. Less sharp edges, more roots." "I dug into the dirt," Logan replied. "You should try it sometime." They sat. For a moment, silence blanketed the table. Two men, one molded by empires, the other reborn in ruins. Victor placed a leather-bound journal on the table between them. Worn, soft, smelling faintly of tobacco and old oil. "Henry's last thoughts," he said. "Never published, never shared." Logan eyed it without touching. "Why now?" Victor leaned back. "Because myth makes martyrs, but truth makes men. You may not like who your father really was." Logan opened the journal. It was filled with notes, musings, sketches, philosophical ramblings. But something felt wrong. Too perfect, too convenient. Lines like, "Sometimes the son must fail to see the value of the father," and "A great vision needs a thief to carry it forward." Logan narrowed his eyes. He never wrote like this. Victor smiled, unfazed. "People change when they're dying." That was when Naomi walked in. She didn't sit. She didn't greet Victor. She simply placed a small scanner over the journal and waited for it to blink red. "Fabrication," she said. "AI-generated, cross-referenced against Henry's original journals. It's a synthetic mimic, fed on your public speeches and Henry's old interviews." Victor didn't flinch. Instead, he laughed. "A good story is still a story, Naomi, whether written by hand or compiled by code." Logan stood, journal untouched. His voice was calm, low, like thunder from far away. "You thought you could manipulate me with poetry." Victor tilted his head. "And yet, here you are." "You're right," Logan said. "I did start building after being humiliated by a key, after the world saw me laugh at the one thing that mattered." He stepped back from the table, eyes hard. If that humiliation unlocked purpose, maybe that was the real inheritance. Victor's smile faltered, just slightly. Logan turned to leave. Victor called after him, voice tinged with something raw. "Legacy is just a word, Logan. It fades. Money speaks longer." Logan didn't turn around. "I'm not building for time," he said. "I'm building for memory." He disappeared into the Nairobi night. Naomi caught up with him at the hotel elevator, breath tight. "Why did you even go?" she asked. "Because I needed to see what failure looked like in a suit," he said, "so I'd never wear it again." They rode in silence. Back in their suite, Naomi removed her biometric wrist drive and placed it on the docking pad, a routine sync. But this time, something unexpected triggered. A non-paper letter embedded deep in her neural file structure, invisible until now, began decrypting on the screen. A single file pulsed. Message from H. Chandler, DNA authenticated. Naomi gasped, "It's him!" She activated the file. A static buzz filled the room. Then Henry's voice, unmistakable, tired but clear. "Naomi, if you're hearing this, the system worked. He found the key. You protected the bridge. I didn't leave paper behind because paper can lie. But memory written in blood doesn't fade. There is one final step. Something I couldn't store in code. Something too dangerous to digitize. It's not data. It's not a device. It's a person." Logan stepped closer. Henry's voice continued. Find him. He carries what I couldn't, what I wasn't allowed to give you. The man you need is my first apprentice. He lives off the grid, no address, but he goes by only one name now. The file glitched, then cut off. Naomi looked at Logan. Logan's eyes narrowed. Who the hell is the apprentice? The oak tree stood at the edge of a quiet backyard in Wichita, Kansas, its branches casting fractured shadows across the sun-dried grass. It looked ordinary, the kind of tree a boy might have climbed 1,000 times, scraped his knees, hidden his secrets in. But this tree held more than childhood memories. It held memory itself. Naomi ran the final sequence again through her interface, a synthetic biology protocol that matched Henry Chandler's DNA encryption patterns to botanical markers. The results were precise. The tree was the vault. Logan stood by in silence, watching as a biotech team carefully extracted a microscopic sample from its inner bark. No damage, no scars, just precision. Within the hour, the data activated. The screen pulsed to life in their portable lab, translating nucleic code into a voice. Henry's voice. It wasn't a broadcast this time. It was a letter, personal and trembling with the weight of a man finally ready to speak. Logan, if this message reached you, then you didn't just find the system. You found yourself. I spent years teaching you how to win, but not how to listen. Not to machines. Not to people. Not to your own silence. And that was my failure. Logan swallowed hard, his fingers pressed into the edge of the table. I thought shielding you from struggle would protect you, but all it did was separate us. I left no inheritance in banks. I buried it in bridges. You are one of them. Naomi is another. There was a pause. Then the voice softened. Naomi, you were the steward. The compass when I lost my way. I trusted you with my son because you never stopped listening. Not to machines, not to memory, not to your own sense of right. Naomi blinked back. Tears. Logan looked over, his expression unreadable, but his eyes full. Logan, the key wasn't to a door. It was to your second chance. I hope you found it. The message ended with a long, exhaled breath. Not a goodbye, just a release. Logan stepped outside into the Kansas wind, the tree behind him, his father's voice still echoing through the silence. Everything had started the day he laughed at a box. What he thought was a joke had become his gospel. A key had unraveled an empire, not of money, but of memory. Months later, the legacy economy platform surpassed all expectations. Now active in 17 countries, it connected decentralized trade, informal logistics, and trust chains built on human dignity, not just code. But Logan didn't build offices. He built schools. He called them compass houses, institutions focused on emotional intelligence and coding. In Kano, Kigali, Kumasi, and Karatina, children were learning to code not only machines, but their own lives. Each building bore the same inscription carved into stone. Begin with trust. Build with grace. Naomi, ever focused, expanded Code Her into 7 countries, its impact recognized globally. Girls who had once been sidelined were now leading node deployments in areas once dismissed as infrastructure dead zones. And amidst the work, amidst the long days and longer nights, came news neither expected. Naomi stood at the door of their Ibadan eco-home one evening, holding a folded note from her doctor. She said nothing, just handed it to Logan, her eyes glassy. He opened it, read it once, then again, and slowly broke. Not from grief, from joy. He pulled her into his arms, the silence between them louder than any celebration. They were having a child. And in that moment, Logan knew that legacy wasn't built in factories, nor encrypted in servers. It was grown, breath by breath, mistake by mistake, love by love. Weeks passed. Life resumed in its beautiful, chaotic rhythm. Until one afternoon, as Logan walked through a newly opened compass house in Ghana, a boy appeared, no more than 10 years old. He said nothing, just extended a hand, holding a small box, wooden, worn, familiar. Logan froze. The boy nodded and walked away, vanishing into the crowd. Naomi opened the box beside him. Inside, nestled in dark velvet, was a key, identical to the first. Only this time, the tag read, "Property of Naomi, Wichita." She looked at Logan. He looked at her. Neither spoke. Because some moments don't need words. They just need the courage to open the next door. 2 years later, the sun rose gently over the still waters of Assajair Lake, brushing gold across the rooftops of a smart eco-home nestled among wild palms and flowering jacarandas. In a modest bungalow designed with glass, wood, and sun-fed panels, Logan Chandler and Naomi West lived far from the chaos of city towers. Their lives now pulsed, not with boardroom battles or streaming headlines, but with purpose and the quiet rhythm of impact. From this sanctuary in Ibadan, they ran the Legacy Platform. No longer just a project, but a continent-spanning movement that lived and breathed through thousands of nodes, trust pods, learning centers, and digital hearts across Africa. In the sun-drenched living room, a toddler giggled. Ayla Chandler, now 2, sat cross-legged on a bamboo mat, playing with a brightly colored learning cube. Embedded in its center, behind reinforced glass, were 2 brass keys, the original one that changed Logan's life, and the second, engraved with Naomi's initials. The cube blinked and chirped with voice-guided prompts, teaching logic, empathy, and basic trust economics in 3 languages. It was more than a toy. It was a symbol, a living memory module, where legacy became tactile. One afternoon, Naomi leaned over the edge of their rooftop garden, holding a tablet in one hand and a wind-swept strand of hair in the other. "I found something," she said. Logan turned from his compost bins, curious. "Another lost Henry vault?" She grinned. "Close. The second key unlocked a trust vault Henry secretly registered in my name." Logan blinked. "A what?" "A digital seed vault, full of African tech projects, unfunded, unlaunched, but all screened by Henry himself years ago." She held out the tablet. On the screen, names of dreamers from across the continent, inventors, engineers, community coders, their ideas stored in encrypted folders like buried treasure. "He called them the unseen builders," Naomi said. "He always knew the ones left behind were the ones closest to the future." They knew what to do. The following month, they launched the Key Initiative, an annual competition that offered funding, mentorship, and platform integration to the most impactful grassroots innovations on the continent. There were no entry fees, no corporate sponsors, just an open invitation. If you have an idea the world forgot, come find the house that remembers. Logan spent his days mentoring the young finalists. He taught more than strategy. He taught ethics, resilience, and the power of walking away from applause when it compromises truth. He became a father figure not just to Ayla, but to a generation of founders who'd grown up in fractured schools and on borrowed devices. Naomi, meanwhile, watched her docuseries, Code from Clay, climb to global platforms. It aired in Johannesburg, London, and São Paulo. Then Netflix. Then UNESCO. Audiences worldwide sat mesmerized as girls from Niger used salt sensors to manage irrigation, as boys in rural Chad simulated freight routes on paper before touching their first laptop. She stood before global panels and said things like, "Innovation isn't born in labs. It's born in need." And everywhere they went, people asked them the same thing. How did it all begin? And always Naomi would smile, eyes drifting back to a box on a desk. A laugh in a tower, a whisper from a father long gone. Then one evening, 2 years to the day since the first key arrived, Logan and Naomi returned to Lagos. The car pulled up to a newly built compound in Lekki Phase 1. Wide walls, open corridors, coated glass panels reflecting the sky. Above the entrance, large block letters carved in teak and steel. The House of Keys. Inside, dozens of young innovators stepped through the doors, some with sandals, others in lab coats, all holding coded key cards that shimmered with their own names, not barcodes. This wasn't a school, it wasn't a tech hub. It was a sanctuary of stories, of reclaimed futures. Isla toddled between the legs of the new arrivals, her hands clutched around the learning cube. She looked up at her parents and said her newest word, clear, bright, confident, key. Naomi bent down and kissed her forehead. Logan watched from behind glass, arms folded, heart full. A narration played softly over the final scene, voice measured, warm, enduring. In a world of skyscrapers and sealed doors, sometimes all it takes is a rusty key and the courage to turn it. And then, the final line, echoing, lingering. This wasn't a story about what was inside the box, it was about who chose to open it. If this story moved you even a little, don't just scroll away, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful dramas, and tell us in the comments. What would you have done if you found that key? Your voice matters here. Let's build this storytelling family together.